Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today we are going to be looking at the new forecast for 2024. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. And so Harris is gaining nationally on the former president. The national average now only has Donald Trump in the five-way race only up by 1.8 percentage points, which kind of mirrors the two-way aggregate, which actually insinuates that Kennedy may in fact be taking more votes away from Trump than Harris in this matchup, which would be a pretty interesting thing to happen. But what I think could possibly be explaining that, as well as the shift with Harris, is the fact that there is a large response bias in polling data right now for Democrats. Democrats are outvoting Republicans in national samples by quite a bit. And so since most Kennedy supporters tend to be Democrats, it would kind of make sense to see that inflated support for both candidates as of right now. He fell drastically in the RCP average. He went from being like at 9% and he's now like 5.8 percentage points. But if you were to look at the two-way race, he's polling at about 48%, which is pretty good. And what we notice here is Harris's favorability is just minus 9.5%. She's actually at 41.3 because her approval rating kind of spiked. But again, that may be due to her jumping in the race, and it probably, if you want me to be honest with you, is a part of that Democrat response bias that we have been seeing in the polling data ever since she joined the race. It may be something permanent, but we will see how this shakes up the race. But definitely in the model, the race is going to be a lot closer for these safe Republican states. We have Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, Nebraska, all of it except the 2nd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and Missouri. We also have South Carolina in that column. Iowa is going to be an 18-point win for Donald Trump. So is Ohio, and the state of Texas is around a 16-point victory for Donald Trump. But the state of Florida is no longer in the safe column. Alaska is in the safe column still, barely at just a 15.5-point victory for Donald Trump. However, Maine's 2nd Congressional District is also no longer in the safe column, only giving Trump 188 safe electoral college votes. As for Harris, California coming in at 21 points. We have Hawaii at a 20-point victory, kind of really removing it from that competitive state that it was once. And we see DC being a 79-point victory for Harris. We go down to Vermont, 29-point victory. We have the state of Massachusetts being a 26-point victory for Harris and a 27-point win in Maryland, giving Harris 85 safe electoral college votes as of right now. For the likely Republican states, we have the state of Florida coming in at just 14.8 percentage points for Donald Trump. This is a state that he won in the last election by 3.4%, and it is trending off, to the right off a cliff. But right now, based on the gains that Harris is making nationally, Donald Trump is only winning the national popular vote by 5.5 points. And so because of that, that is actually making some of these races a little bit closer than they would have been before. And so that's why Florida is now in this column that you see right here. For Georgia, that is actually only a 7-point race in the state. Harris has noticeably gained in Georgia and North Carolina in terms of ground game. They are now voting to the left of the Rust Belt in Nevada and Arizona by a pretty decent amount. And this may be because the demographic model and the approval rating is also picking up this shift where Georgia and North Carolina, Harris is higher in favorables than in Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I actually just updated all of the favorable ratings, and believe it or not, she's actually doing slightly worse in the Rust Belt and in Nevada and Arizona than Georgia and North Carolina, which I think is very fascinating. In North Carolina, it's actually only an 8-point race there. Trump is only winning 8 points in North Carolina as of right now, a state that voted for him by 1 point in the last election. And since Donald Trump is winning the popular vote by 5.5, this would indicate the state would be trending kind of heavily to the left. We'll see when new data comes out of there, but clearly something is developing out of the state of North Carolina and Georgia. Maine's second congressional district is now a 14-point victory for Donald Trump. The state of Arizona, however, is a 9-point victory, 9.5 points for Donald Trump. I mean, he lost the state before the national environment shifting about 11 points. So the state's kind of shifting, or at least trending, about a few points Democrat. Now, Nevada is still an 11.5-point victory, which seems very reasonable. And what's interesting is that Georgia, if you actually don't include third parties, the margin actually was a 3.5-point victory in our latest poll with SoCal Research. And so if you were to apply third parties, a 5 to 7 point victory would actually be realistic. And a lot of the polling data has indicated that Harris is actually doing significantly better, and that it's not just a response bias. You know, obviously I lean towards the former president, but when the data is indicating that certain races and certain things are changing, I do have to be honest about that. And so the Rust Belt is voting for Donald Trump still very easily. He still wins the Electoral College. We have Wisconsin at 9 points, Pennsylvania at 11 points, and the state of Michigan at 9 points as well. So Donald Trump is winning all those states with massive ease as of right now, easily getting to 312 Electoral College votes. Now, looking at the likely Democrat states, we have the state of Washington at 11 points for Harris, Oregon at 9 points for Harris. We have Rhode Island at 11 points for Harris. We have the state of Colorado coming in at 7 points for Harris, as well as Illinois at 7 points for Harris. We have Connecticut coming in at 11 points. We have Delaware at 9 points for Harris, and we have the state of New Jersey being an 8-point victory for Harris as of right now, getting her to 162 electoral votes, with the state of New York being a likely Democrat state of about 12 points, which is pretty close to what we have in our latest matchup polling in the state. So I actually find that very, very fascinating. And Maine's first congressional district is going in that likely Democrat column. For the lean Republican states, we have the state of New Mexico at 2 points for Donald Trump. This is a state he lost by about 10.8 percentage points. And if he's shifting the nation roughly about 10 points to the right, this would actually be very fascinating, because that would indicate that the state's actually trending about a point or so to the right. And that would be a very fascinating development out of the state of New Mexico. This state has a lot of Hispanic and white voters, and since Donald Trump is doing better demographically with white and Hispanic voters than he would have against Biden, that's why you still see the state going for Donald Trump pretty easily. The electorate was actually a majority white the last time around, so that is pretty interesting. If we look at Nebraska's second congressional district, we have a lean margin in the state by around 4.5 points. That district voted for Biden by about 6.6%. So if it were to vote lean Republican here, it would actually be trending right by like a couple points, which would make sense because they just redrew this district to be more Republican. So that would honestly kind of make sense. Now, looking at the lean Democrat states, we have the state of Virginia actually at 3 points for Harris. I mean, she's exciting that kind of Nova far left crowd. And I guess that's why she's kind of picking up some momentum in the nationwide shift. If Donald Trump is winning the popular vote by 5.5, Virginia is still going to trend to the left. So it wouldn't be enough to win the state nationally, which puts her above 200 electoral votes. Now, for the tilt Republican states, Minnesota and Maine at large are actually still going tilt Republican in the model. Maine at large is actually a 0.4 percentage point win for Donald Trump. Minnesota is 0.3, so albeit they are very close, but they are actually still going for the former president in this forecast, but they are almost going to end up being in the blue column at some point if Harris continues to gain nationally. And the last state on the map is the state of New Hampshire, coming in as a tilt margin at 0.3 percentage points for Kamala Harris. So this leaves Donald Trump with 330 electoral college votes to Harris's 208. Obviously, Donald Trump is still winning the race with very big ease. I mean, he's winning very easily. He's winning all the major swing states by a decent amount and is winning Florida by a lot, Texas, Iowa, Ohio, even picking up Minnesota and Maine and even New Mexico. But at the same time, this is narrowing up from our previous forecast where Trump was easily winning New Jersey, winning, all of Virginia, New Hampshire, getting 347, 361. But the national data indicates that the race is getting closer. Now, again, a large response bias is occurring in surveys, which is going to affect her approval rating. But if you are concerned about Trump winning, the good news about this, if we were to go to Pennsylvania, yes, Donald Trump leads by 3, but he's actually polling a little bit higher than what he was against Biden. It's just that Harris is also gaining from Biden support too. All it really is that there's slightly less undecideds now. If you look, Donald Trump is actually above the vote share he got in 2020. Or at least he's very, very close to it. I'm pretty sure he's doing better than 2016. Or actually, no, he's like about to pull there. But if you actually look here, in 2016, he was polling right around what he was not even polling close to what he actually got. He was polling at 44 and him getting 48. And then if you look at Pennsylvania's polling in 2020, you actually see that he ended up being underestimated by like a point there. So the fact he's almost polling at what he got in 2016 and 2020 is actually pretty good for him, because if he's actually polling around there, he may get around 49-50% in the state based on the fact that he's been underestimated there before. Even Georgia, he's polling pretty close to that mark there. So that is very, very fascinating. Now, in the 3-way matchup or the 5-way matchup, he is only at 46% in Georgia, which wouldn't really be that good. But clearly, again, there is something going on with everything. You see Wisconsin, the average is close, but again, she's basically polling higher than Biden, but Trump is actually at 48.5%, which is really close to what he got in 2020 and is actually higher. He's polling higher than what he got in 2016, and this is when he was polling at 44% in the state. So it's like he is massively outperforming. He's actually outperforming himself in the polling data against himself from 2016. And in Nevada, they haven't really made an aggregate for it yet, but he would essentially be at like 49% if you were to average this out. If you look at North Carolina, he's at 50. In the state of Georgia, he's at 48.5. And in Michigan, he's actually at 47.7%. If we were to look at 2016, he's actually right now polling slightly higher than what he got in 2016 and is actually polling literally right around what he got in 2020. And again, they've underestimated his vote share both times. So in terms of him actually winning the race, I wouldn't be concerned. He's still a heavy favorite to win. But Harris does have a little bit of a momentum nationally, and we'll see how that develops over the next couple of weeks. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.